Moving on to the next division that we will be going over today for our NFL preview here on the Zach Krull Sports Podcast is the AFC East. And I do think for the first time in a while, the AFC East actually has an argument to be not only one of the more competitive, but actually one of the better divisions in the NFL. Last year, this division only got one playoff team, Buffalo. The Bills end up winning the division, but Miami was one win away from the playoffs. New England, with a lot of guys on defense opting out and not a very good offense, they were still able to win 7 games. Both Miami, New England should be better. Buffalo obviously looks to improve on the phenomenal season that they had last year. So I do think there are so many intriguing storylines heading into the AFC East. And the AFC East, for me, is actually going to be the division where, in terms of the winner, the team that I am going to predict to end up winning the division, I'm not going chalk. I'm actually going to go with a little bit of a surprise team here with my prediction to win the AFC East, and that is I am going to predict the Miami Dolphins to win the AFC East with a record of 12-5. And I know what a lot of people are saying. You're saying, Zach, the Miami Dolphins last year had Tua Tagovailoa and Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback, and they still missed the playoffs even when everything went right. They had one of the better defenses in the league. They have a quarterback that still has a lot to prove. What are we doing here picking the Miami Dolphins to win the AFC East? By the way, Miami is plus 300 to win the AFC East. Their over-under win total right now is sitting at 9.5. So I will take the over. When it comes to Tua Tagovailoa, I totally understand that this guy was not very good last year, and he still has so much to prove on the NFL level. But I think the main reason why I'm picking the Miami Dolphins to surprise some people and end up winning the AFC East is not only because of Tua Tagovailoa. I'll admit, I think Tua's obituary has been written way too early, considering everything that was not in his favor going back to last season. When you look at the Miami Dolphins had one of the worst supply of weapons in the NFL. He was throwing to Jakeem Grant and Preston Williams and Devontae Parker. Bringing in guys like Jalen Waddle and Will Fuller will obviously improve the amount of targets that this Miami Dolphins team has for Tua. Also, he clearly wasn't 100% healthy. We remember the hip surgery that this guy had to have while he was still at Alabama. Injuries were a big concern for this guy coming into his NFL career, but last year he just wasn't healthy, and I think that was going against him. Also, his head coach, Brian Flores, really didn't ask him to do much. He was only really allowed to throw passes 10 yards or shorter. I think this year, all three of those factors get better for Tagovailoa. I think his weapons are much more improved. I think he's healthier, and I do think Brian Flores, now that he's a year into the system, now that he's going to have a full training camp and a full preseason under his belt, like Tua didn't look terrible in those preseason games. He looked pretty confident. He looked like he was in total control of the offense. I'm not saying that he's going to be some superstar and is going to become the next Dan Marino. I'm not. But what I am saying is I think that last year, Brian Flores proved to me that he is one of these coaches where until I see with my own two eyes, it's very hard for me to bet against this guy. The Dolphins won so many games last year with subpar quarterback play, whether it was Ryan Fitzpatrick or whether it was Tua, and it was really impressive. And now, when I look at this Dolphins roster and when I look at this team, I actually like the talent way more than I liked last year's talent, whether it is bringing in guys like Fuller and Waddle, whether it is improving that offensive line a little bit, obviously adding some guys on defense as well, bringing back a lot of guys from that defense from last year, including both Byron Jones and Xavier Howard. The Xavier Howard contract dispute was a huge issue going into camp. It looks like the Miami Dolphins have found a way to be able to fix that out. And I just really like this team, man. This team led the NFL in third down defense last year. They forced the most turnovers in the league. And I do think their offense is going to be better. I think their defense is one of the 5 most underrated defense in the league, maybe number 1. They're definitely one of the 5 to 7 best defenses in the league. I'll say that for sure. They have a new offensive coordinator as well. No more Chan Gailey. 2 new offensive coordinator, George Goodsey and Eric Studsville, will be sharing the reins of the offensive play calling. And I saw Tua Tagovailoa when he was at Alabama. Even though everyone loves to say he played with the best weapons, which he did, he played with very good weapons, but you cannot be bad. It's almost like Mac Jones when you had that good of a season at Alabama. No matter how good the weapons are, I was able to see this guy time in and time out just drop dimes while he was the quarterback at the University of Alabama. I think in the NFL with better weapons, that improves. I love Miami's defense. I just love Brian Flores as a head coach. He's a coach that does more with less and always finds a way to win games. I think Miami wins the AFC East for the first time since Tony Sparano, Ronnie Brown, Ricky Williams, and those 2008 Dolphins with Chad Pennington. 12-5, Miami wins the AFC East. I am not a Buffalo Bills hater by any means. I know a lot of people are going to look at my standings predictions, picking the Bills to come in second place. I think the Bills are a playoff team. I think they're going to finish with a record of 11-6. Last year, I will fully admit, I was not too high on the Buffalo Bills. I did not think their quarterback was going to be able to win games consistently. He, throughout his first 2 years in the NFL, quite frankly, was not good. He needed to be better. He was inaccurate. He couldn't really make the right decision. You guys remember those playoff games against the Houston Texans when this guy was out here lateraling the ball to the defense just about in a tie game in the playoffs. Like, this guy was just super erratic, but all of a sudden Josh Allen literally took probably the biggest leap I've ever seen from an NFL quarterback last year when he took this Bills and the NFL by reign and was really able to do a good job leading the Bills to the AFC East. Sean McDermott has done a great job since he got to Buffalo, and this is just a lesson for teams. When you draft a quarterback, no matter how good they are, no matter how bad they are, no matter how much talent they have, you need to do as good of a job as you possibly can by putting that quarterback in a good position to succeed. And I really do think that is exactly what the Buffalo Bills have done with Josh Allen. By bringing in Stephon Diggs last offseason, that literally changed the fortunes of the Buffalo Bills because that made the Bills' passing attack good to great, and you clearly saw the effect that it was able to have on Josh Allen as a starting quarterback. They also bring back Dawson Knox and Cole Beasley, and Emmanuel Sanders is a good addition. Gabriel Davis, one of the deeper receiving cores in the NFL. Now, if the Buffalo Bills want to win the Super Bowl and go back to the Super Bowl, even beat Kansas City, which they still have to prove, obviously, Josh Allen, in a couple chances, has not been able to beat Patrick Mahomes yet. I think that Buffalo needs to find the balance that they were able to use 2 years ago when they got to the playoffs and lost that wild card weekend game to the Houston Texans. And I'll explain to you guys what I mean. Last year, what was so crazy to me about Buffalo is not that they won games. They made the playoffs the year before. What hit me and what made me so confused was that Buffalo was winning games and their offense was putting up a crazy amount of points, but their offensive line, despite being very talented, wasn't anything special. Their defense, besides being very talented with guys like Poyer and Micah Hyde and Tre'Davious White, probably one of the 2 or 3 best corners in the league, and Ed Oliver, Jerry Hughes, Matt Milano, their defense was kind of suspect. There was never really a game where their defense stepped up and won it for them, and they never really had to because the offense was that good. But in big games against Kansas City and Miami, who I think is obviously going to be very good, they're my pick to win the division. Can the defense, can the offensive line, and can Josh Allen can those units all step up in order to make this Buffalo's Bills team, to put them over the top? Can the Buffalo Bills get those contributions? There's some young players on both sides of the ball I like, from A.J. Epinesa on the defensive line to Gabriel Davis, the receiver I mentioned. He is a guy who's a natural playmaker. I do love the job that Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane have done since they've gone to Buffalo, and I'm telling you, the Bills are going to be my first wild card in the AFC. I'm predicting them to finish 11-6. There were many times last year when I watched these Buffalo Bills and I said, wow, these guys are one of the better teams in the NFL. They're a legit threat to make a deep run really soon. And they paid their quarterback, deservedly so. He's gotten so much better since he's gotten to the league. It really just shows you once again how important developing and caring about your quarterback is. I love everything that Buffalo has done in terms of the development of Josh Allen. And right now the Bills' win total is over under 11. I think they hit that right on the dot. I have them going 11-6. Sean McDermott has obviously been able to win double-digit games over the last couple years since he got to Buffalo. I just think that key for the Bills is finding the balance. I do think Josh Allen was not a fluke. He's going to be one of the 6 to 7 best quarterbacks in the NFL next year. Obviously, you have Stephon Diggs playing some great football. Here's another thing for Buffalo that I didn't even mention. They need to find a way to run the ball. Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, they bring in Matt Breida. Like, these aren't bad players. But last year, Buffalo could not run the football at all. They were literally having Josh Allen drop back 50 times a game. I think if they want to win the Super Bowl, that's obviously another very important factor to this Buffalo Bills team. They need to find a way to run the ball better, because if you just have a non-existent running game, as the Pittsburgh Steelers, your season won't end well. Buffalo is my second place team in the AFC East with a record of 11-6. Coming in third place with a record of 9-8, one of the more fascinating teams to watch in the NFL this upcoming season is Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. Once again, have them finishing with a record of 9-8. And I will say this, I do think the New England Patriots made the right decision going with Mac Jones as their Week 1 starting quarterback over Cam Newton, and I'll explain to you guys why. Last year, when I watched Cam Newton after he got COVID, and I think that's just an excuse, right? There are plenty of players across the NFL that were able to get the coronavirus last year and just step up right away. I understand everyone's body just responds differently to the virus, and maybe that had some kind of an effect for Cam Newton. But the bottom line is this. I just don't think Cam Newton was good at football anymore. This is a guy that when he came into the league, he was known for running, and he did a great job of that. He is probably the best running quarterback I have ever seen in all of my years of watching NFL football. However, after just playing for a handful of years and having 2 very serious shoulder injuries, I think Cam's body just gave up on him. And we saw last year many times, I remember just watching the Patriots and asking myself, like, is Cam Newton an NFL quarterback anymore? Because I'm really not sure that he is. And Bill Belichick and the Patriots last year were desperate, right? They figured out quickly that after letting Tom Brady go, neither Jarrett Stidham or Brian Hoyer was going to be the answer at starting quarterback for the New England Patriots. And then this year, they decided to bring Cam Newton back. I've always thought that Bill Belichick has had this weird fascination with Cam Newton. I think a couple years ago, Tom Brady's last year in New England, you guys remember that Sunday night football game against the Ravens when Lamar Jackson just ran all over New England? I think since that game, Bill Belichick has always been fascinated by that running quarterback, and he's always wanted that mobile quarterback for him in his offense to have. And he brought Cam Newton back this year, and I thought that with him doing that, that just meant that Cam Newton was going to be the starter. But I think the reason that didn't happen was because Mac Jones didn't give Bill Belichick a choice. I think Mac Jones was just that much better than Cam Newton at camp, and he really was able to learn the offense and was able to prove that he could lead this team very well. And I was really impressed with Mac Jones, how he looked in the preseason, and I do think he just took this job from Cam Newton. He was just clearly the better option for this New England Patriot team, and it's a big season for New England. Bill Belichick is clearly going to want to show the rest of the league after Tom Brady wins the Super Bowl in his first year out of Tampa. He's going to want to show, or out of New England, I should say. Bill Belichick is going to want to show that he was the primary reason the Patriots were trying to bring home all those rings. It's an ego thing. He's going to want to win big this year. The Patriots also had the most opt-outs in the league due to COVID. They'll be back. My other concern with the Patriots, though, is this. I understand they spent a lot of money in free agency, and that's another big key as to why a lot of people, in some instances, are high on New England this season. But here's my question. Even though they spent all that money on free agency, how much better are they? Like, the Patriots' weapons were awful last year, I get it. But how much better does Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, and Hunter Henry, who has a hard time staying healthy, make you? Jonnu Smith, like, these are fine players, but I just don't know if they're dynamic impact players that are going to be able to make all the difference in the world for this New England Patriot team. I see some talent here. I trust Bill Belichick as a head coach, but at the same time, why did he bring Cam Newton back in the first place? I think it's because Belichick wanted him deep down to be the starter, but once again saw that Mac was just too good not to give the job to week one. But it's interesting for Bill Belichick. He's the greatest coach I've ever seen, and at the same time, he has a losing record in his career without Tom Brady. I'm just giving you a fact. I want to see him prove to us that without Tom Brady, he could win football games consistently. I think this roster is good, not great. I think New England's talent level is good, not great. They are going to finish 9-8, and in a tough AFC, just finish a game back of that last playoff spot. I have New England at 9-8. I think they'll have a winning season, but fall just short. Just because even though I think their team got better, I just don't know how much better they got. I do think going with Mac is the right move. The rookie quarterback, I think, will be a player. Finishing in last place in my AFC East predictions is going to be Robert Saleh, Zach Wilson, and the New York Jets. I'm going to predict the New York Jets to finish with a record of 6-11 in the AFC East. By the way, New England, over-under win total, 9.5. I will go under that, and I will pass on New England plus 350 to win the AFC East. The Jets, we look at them now. Their over-under win total for this season will be 6, and I think they were going to hit that on the money. For the first time in a while, I do think the New York Jets are going in the right direction, and Jet fans do have some reason for optimism. I love the head coaching hire of Robert Saleh. He is the total opposite of Adam Gase, a guy that just has so much energy, and a guy that I think players are ultimately going to want to play for. They bring in Zach Wilson, a quarterback that I think is really good. He has some really good natural arm talent and arm ability. The question is he going to be able to read defenses? Is he going to be able to step back in the pocket against an NFL pass rush and get the job done? Is he going to be able to signal and make the right throws and put his receivers in the right position to succeed? Those are the questions that we cannot answer with a quarterback before we've seen them play a game. But I've been really impressed with what Zach Wilson has looked like in preseason, and I think the Jets have already given him a better chance to succeed with the parts around him than Sam Darnold. The Jets really didn't give Sam Darnold a real shot in New York, and it's a shame because I think Sam Darnold could be pretty good this season in Carolina as a result mainly of the weapons and the coaching around him. But the Jets giving Sam Darnold, Todd Bowles, and Adam Gase, and no receivers, and no offensive line. Those were just recipes for disaster. And I think the Jets, over the last couple drafts, Joe Douglas has done a really good job of prioritizing the offensive line, bringing in Mekhi Becton, Elijah Vera Tucker, signing Morgan Moses this offseason. We also brought in, as you can see, I'm a Jet fan. Sorry, it slipped. I try to be as unbiased as possible on this show. But Jamison Crowder, Keelan Cole, the drafting signing of Elijah Moore, who's going to be a big-time player. Corey Davis. The Jets' receiving depth is much better. Obviously, the loss of Carl Lawson is just a killer. I think the Jets' defense could have actually been one of the more underrated units in the league. However, without Carl Lawson, the loss of Vinny Curry, who was going to be a free agent addition from Philadelphia, this defense is just looking a little thin right now. And the AFC is really tough and really deep. So I'm going to predict the Jets to finish with a record of 6-11. It's going to be a fascinating season to see what Robert Saleh and Zach Wilson bring to the table. But once again, for the first time in a while, I just feel optimistic and happy to be a Jet fan. I do think Joe Douglas knows what he's doing. I do think Joe Douglas is building this team in the right direction, which we haven't really been able to say about other past GMs. I mean, guys, I don't think we realize just how bad Mike McCagnon was and just how far back he really set this New York Jet team with his drafting, whether it was Calvin Pryor or Christian Hackenberg. Like, this guy just didn't know how to draft and take advantage of his first-round picks, and Joe Douglas is trying to do the opposite. Obviously, Mekhi Becton, Zach Wilson in the first couple of years, I don't think it's a terrible start. So, to recap, AFC East, I will have Miami, the surprise pick to win the division with a record of 12-5. I love Tua. I think Brian Flores is one of the 5 to 6 best coaches in the NFL. I think that defense is undervalued. They were able to provide turnovers and really at the most ideal time last year. I'm a big fan of that unit. Miami wins the division 12-5. I'll go Buffalo in second at 11-6. Love Josh Allen. Think he's going to only get better. The key is, can they get that consistent balance? I will have the New England Patriots in third, 9-8. Have a winning season, will be better than last year. I'm just not sure if it's enough to do any better than that. Jets, 6-11 in fourth place. I think there are going to be reasons for optimism for the Jets. That is my thoughts on the AFC East.